Here are the terms for this first lecture, and although it's broken up into different parts, these terms are the same terms, the only ones you'll need for the entire series of parts. By the end of this presentation, you should understand the basics of the Roman Empire's army and grand strategy, the military causes of the fall of the Western Roman Empire, as we'll see the Eastern Roman Empire continue to exist until 1453. Next, the organization of the society that emerged in Western Europe after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, how early medieval armies were organized and equipped, the significance of Charles Martel, the basics of the Battle of Poitiers, also called the Battle of Tours. That's in 732 AD. The significance of Edward Creasy's 15 Decisive Battles of the World, originally published in 1851. And finally, Charlemagne and the Carolingian Empire. Now, I feel kind of odd in a course on the history of war to pay so little attention up until now to the Roman Empire, one of the greatest empires in history, with an astoundingly effective army and military traditions whose influence extends down to the present day. But we're covering so much ground, from cavemen to Al-Qaeda, that we have to pick our targets. And in broad outline, the Roman military was so similar to that of the Greeks that, and the Roman Empire or the Roman attitude toward war was so much like that of the Greeks that it would be almost like telling the same story again. But it's impossible to dismiss the Roman Empire altogether, because unless you know something of its government, its army, its grand strategy, and especially the military reasons for its fall, you won't have the foundation you need to understand the main subject of this presentation, war in the early Middle Ages. Now, Rome began as the equivalent of a city-state, and according to legend, was founded by two brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were descended from Aeneas, a Trojan prince who fled Troy when it fell to the Greeks. And so there's this connection with the Iliad here. And again, according to legend, Aeneas gathered a group of Trojan refugees and took them to Italy, where they became the forebears of the Romans. Aeneas, incidentally, is a minor character in Homer's Empire. He's right in there. So early in the 5th century BCE, Rome became a republic, and it was as a republic that it gradually expanded. First, to control the Italian peninsula, and then continued to expand until by 44 BCE, it possessed modern-day France, modern-day Spain and Portugal, Greece, and parts of North Africa. Now, 44 BCE is a critical date because it was in that year, on the Ides of March, March 15th, that a conspiracy of Roman senators assassinated Julius Caesar, a military genius who had made himself a dictator. This triggered a civil war in which a young man named Octavian, the adopted son of Julius Caesar, systematically destroyed all of Julius Caesar's enemies. He then took complete power over Rome. The Roman Republic was already a shambles, and under Octavian, who took the name Caesar Augustus, the Roman Republic became the Roman Empire, and it would survive as an empire for nearly 500 years. Now, fundamental to the control of an empire, of course, is its army, and the Roman army was superb. This illustration shows three types of Roman soldier, but we need only to look at the one on the left, a heavy infantryman who was the backbone of the army. Superficially, he looks much like a Greek hoplite, but the appearance is rather deceiving. The spear he is holding is not actually a spear, but rather a pilum, a weapon that was thrown at the enemy at the outset of a battle. If it struck a man, that was fine. But if it struck an enemy's shield, it was made in such a way that it pulled the shield toward the ground, making the enemy soldier more vulnerable. The main weapon of the Roman Empire, though, the Roman soldier, was a short stabbing sword called a gladius, from which the term gladiator is derived. The Roman Empire used a phalanx formation, much like the Greeks, but it was organized into legions. The exact configuration of the legions varied over time, but you're looking at the type of legion used by Imperial Rome throughout its existence. It was called the cohortal legion because it consisted of 10 units of 600 men each, and each unit of 600 were called a cohort. Multiply 600 men by 10 cohorts, and you have 6,000 men. This type of legion was very flexible. The cohorts could fight as one big mass, or they could maneuver separately as a battlefield situation required. The Romans also used a system of rotating soldiers. The first rank would fight for a while. Then, as it began to retire get tired from the effort of using its sword, at a given command, it would march to the rear, and the second rank would fight, then the third, and so on. To successfully carry out this tactic during combat required intensive training and discipline. The video I'm about to show you depicts how it works. It starts with a battle, the Romans against the Gauls, the people who lived in present-day France, and ends with the surrender of the Gallic leader, Vercingetorix. During the battle, you'll see a Roman soldier blowing a whistle. He is a centurion, a leader of 100 men, and when he blows the whistle, it is a signal for the front rank to move to the rear and the next rank to take over the job of fighting. The Roman army could also use massed shields to create a variety of protective formations. Now, film depictions of battle in the ancient and medieval periods are notoriously inaccurate, but the scene you're about to watch is acclaimed by Roman military historians for getting it exactly right.
Formation, you drunken fool! Reform! Legionary Titus Pullo is a hero of the 13th Legion, but look at him now. Justice knows every man's number. He has committed a terrible sacrilege, and he will pay for it with his life. As will any man here who breaks the law. Brawlers and drunkards will be flogged.
Thieves will be strangled.
Deserters will be crucified.
Is that it? I was just beginning to enjoy myself. Before you, Vercingetorix, son of Keltil, chieftain of the tribe of the Averni, commander of the rebel stronghold of Alesia, king of all the Gauls. What would you have of him?
With a combination of flexibility at the operational level and unmatched prowess at the tactical level, the Roman army was nearly invincible, and it was supported by an unmatched administrative structure that was able to keep it well organized and supplied and to coordinate its movements across the whole extent of the empire. The Romans also constructed a superb road network specifically designed for the road to let the regions march from one place to another with great rapidity. This map shows the extent of the empire in the early 2nd century under the Emperor Hadrian. The red lines represent the primary road net, consisting of 50,000 miles of roads paved with carefully placed stones. There were also 230,000 miles of dirt roads. Here is a Roman paved road as it appears today, and it's still in use. Roman paved roads were built to last, and indeed have lasted down to the present day and are still usable. It is no exaggeration to say that they were built better than the roads we construct today, which require almost constant repair. Now, you would think that an army able to defend the vast Roman Empire would have to be very large and expensive to maintain. But in fact, the Romans were able to defend the empire at very moderate cost. The swiftness with which its legions could move from one threatened place to another greatly reduced the need to have a large force. Rome also used its diplomatic power, backed by the threat of force, to get much of what it wanted without fighting. In addition, it created an ambitious system of fortifications to guard its borders. For over 200 years, Rome successfully defended its empire with an army totaling just 300,000 men, half of them legionaries and half of them auxiliary troops. The modest cost of defending defending Rome with its army enabled Rome to spend much of its wealth on other things, great colosseums, for example, and also to maintain a strong economy. Rome's secret was not ceaseless fighting, but rather comprehensive strategies that unified force, diplomacy, and an immense infrastructure of roads, forts, and walls. Here is one such wall built by the Emperor Hadrian to protect the province of Britannia, present-day England, from Celtic-speaking peoples regarded simply as barbarians who lived in present-day Scotland. a region difficult to control because of its hilly terrain and not really worth having anyway. The wall, called Hadrian's Wall, extended all the way across the Britannian frontier from the Irish Sea in the west to the North Sea in the east, a distance of 73 miles. The walls followed the terrain and had small forts built at 1 mile intervals. That's my daughter's mother, by the way, and had a major fort every 5 miles. You're looking here at the ruins of Bercovicium, commonly called housesteads, because in the 17th century, the ruins were within boundaries of a large farm by that name. Here is an artist's depiction of what the fort looked like. Housesteads has been heavily excavated, and we know a lot about it. The stone foundations of all the buildings remain, and archaeologists have figured out the purpose of each of the buildings that once stood on them. Housesteads included a headquarters building, several barracks and granaries, a hospital, and a latrine large enough to accommodate the whole garrison of the fort. Here's what it looked like in action. A series of outside water tanks sent a continual stream of water into the latrine. Most of it flowed into the lower level beneath the seats to flush the waste from the latrine. Most of it, the rest flowed through channels on the upper platform and was used for washing. In place of toilet paper, the Romans used a sponge at the end of a stick. You might want to bear this in mind in case the grocery stores once again run out of toilet paper. This presentation is being done in the autumn of 2021. And we still remember with terror the great toilet paper shortage of the spring of 2020. My point in showing you this latrine isn't frivolous. I want you to consider the enormous effort that went into its construction, the hundreds of stones cut into uniform rectangles needed to construct the foundation and the walls, the creation of the channels, also made of stone to carry the flow of water, and the system of water tanks built to provide a continuous flow of water. This latrine was built to last for centuries, and aside from the disappearance of the wooden seats, it has for 1,900 years and counting. The latrine reveals the Roman mindset. They expected their empire to last forever. But it didn't. In the mid-3rd century, a rash of civil wars weakened the army, which was in any case part of a military system predicated to counter only 1 or 2 threats at a time. Instead, the Roman Empire began to experience simultaneous, near continuous pressure from Persia in the east and the Germanic tribes to the north. Roman emperors attempted military reforms intended to respond effectively to the new situation, but without success. And the need to strengthen the army, it doubled in size during this period, led to the recruitment of men whose quality was inferior to the carefully picked men of the earlier army. It also included numerous quote unquote barbarians from Germanic tribes, collectively called Goths, that were loosely bound to the empire by treaties. Now, for reasons that need not detain us, Roman rulers eventually decided to divide the empire into 2 parts, each with its own emperor. It was a gradual process, but formally complete in 395 AD. A battle that occurred 2 decades before this division was an augury of what lay ahead for the Romans. A war broke out between the Romans and a large Germanic tribe called the Visigoths. On August 9th, 378 AD, The Romans fought a major battle near Adrianople, 150 miles west of the present-day city of Istanbul, fought this battle against the Visigoths. The Romans expected an easy victory. Instead, they met with disaster. 2 out of every 3 legionnaires was killed, as was the Roman emperor, who was leading the army in person. The Visigoth cavalry was largely the reason the Visigoths won, and it used to be thought that Adrianople marked the end of the infantry as the dominant force on the battlefield and its replacement by heavy cavalry. Well, the eclipse of infantry by cavalry as the arm of decision on the battlefield eventually did take place, but not at Adrianople. Still, the shattering Roman defeat was a foretaste of a steady string of disasters that occurred in the decades ahead. In 410 AD, the Visigoths penetrated as far as Rome itself and sacked the city, seizing everything in it not nailed down or red hot, and ransacking many of the city's great buildings and taking some of the city's people as slaves. In 455 AD, Rome was sacked again, this time by a tribe called the Vandals, from which we get the word vandalism. Finally, in 476 AD, the last Roman Empire, Romulus Augustulus, was forced to abdicate after a power struggle with Odoacer, a Roman general, but of barbarian origin. The year is usually regarded as the fall of the Roman Empire, the end of the Roman Empire, although the year 410 is sometimes used. That's the year in which the Visigoths sacked Rome. But either way, it was actually the Western Roman Empire that fell. For the Eastern Roman Empire survived for another 10 centuries under the name Byzantine Empire. Odoacer ruled as the de facto king of Italy for 17 years, until Italy was invaded by the Ostrogoths, yet another Germanic tribe, and Odoacer was killed. In fact, the leader of the Ostrogoths, Theodoric the Great, killed Odoacer with his bare hands. Theodoric established the kingdom of the Ostrogoths and ruled Italy and part of the Balkans until his death in 526 AD. Other Germanic tribes established kingdoms of their own. So this is what Europe looked like at the time of Theodoric's death. You're looking at the beginnings of medieval Europe.